Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Joseph Morris live stream. If you're new here, hi, how are you? I am Joseph Morris. I am a true crime case discussion channel. So if that's for you, please make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and we can hang out. As always, you can sound off to the chat on the right-hand side, which is actually my left. So I always get this wrong. Let me just point it out right here because I will be reading your chats throughout. And I also get a lot of my ideas from you guys. So it really helps out when you guys start speculating and conversing on the left-hand side. Or if you're watching this at a later date, please make sure you leave a comment down below. I'm joined here by my co-host, Miss Gabby. Let me just grab her. So again, if you want to hang out with us, please make sure you hit the subscribe button down below because Gabby loves the company and she likes the attention you guys give her as well. So thank you so much for joining me here. As you all know, Prince Andrew's case is going to court in New York City. Virginia Giuffre is pressing a civil lawsuit for emotional distress as well as battery. So if he's found convicted, he could potentially lose more than just his military titles as well as his HRH. He could potentially be removed of his Duke of York title. And the Duke of York title is something that is, I don't understand why he still has it, because if I'm looking at this poll that was recently done here, let me just pull it up. The British public want the Queen to strip Prince Andrew of his Duke of York title and his place in the line of succession, a poll commissioned by the Sunday Express finds. His grandson has yet to see his grandson right now, or granddaughter, Lilibet. I don't know, however that child identifies. So Prince Charles has still not seen Meghan and Prince Harry's child yet. So Prince Harry wants to go back to the UK. However, he feels unsafe, although a lot of people think that he's not even a celebrity, so he doesn't need that protection. There's some people that think the risk of his security is actually quite low, so he shouldn't be requiring that much security. But he says, I want to pay for the security myself, and I'm willing to have my own private security, but the royal government is saying, no, that's not good enough. You need Met, but you can't outsource the Met because they're not for hire. So I'm going to say hi to the chat right now. Thank you so much. Hi, Joseph and Gabby. Alexis Mello writes, hey there, Marla Marmichael writes, who the F is Gabby? So Gabby is my dog. Hello from Scotland, Wendy. You guys are awesome. So this is the headline of my event. And I do want to pull it up right here. Prince Andrew partied with topless women with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. So this is a photo that has been dug up because Prince Andrew is going to court in New York City. I'm not too sure if he's actually going to go into court himself, but he has his representative, his lawyer, that is a huge Hollywood lawyer, which apparently he's over 3 million pounds in debt over. And he also has another, not in debt, but has to pay this people 3 million pounds so far. And who's on the hook for that? Obviously, you know, his mother, because this guy has stepped away from royal duties since 2019 after the disastrous BBC interview. He hasn't been working, but he's still collecting checks from his mother. I think what his allowance is like 300,000 pounds a month, which is crazy for somebody that doesn't even work. I think it's actually closer to 400,000 pounds, but either way, that's a lot of money for somebody who doesn't work, who doesn't pay rent, I'm assuming, in the Buckingham Palace. The Buckingham Palace isn't cheap to live in either. I was looking at their heating bills. Their heating bills are like 1.2 million pounds a year. And they actually hired somebody to go around the Buckingham Palace to like turn off the lights and close the windows to like help save money. But the Buckingham Palace isn't cheap to live in. It's the most expensive place in the world. It's the most expensive home in the world. And, you know, he lives there and he's welcome there. He also lives with the Duchess of York in royal property, which is crazy because they're divorced. More on that in a bit, but apparently after their divorce, they still hang out together, and he still has her wedding dress in his closet, along with the 60 teddy bears on his bed. But anyway, this article says, a new look into Prince Andrew's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell has surfaced after he was spotted partying with topless models in Thailand. And I don't know about you, but when I hear Thailand, what do I think of? I think of nefarious things. Let me just look into this. Yeah, Thailand is a hotspot for trafficking. Thailand's industry is a human trafficking destination. Ethnic Thais are trafficked from poor areas of all these different places to the tourist areas. The Thai government identified 720 trafficking victims of all types in 2015, but from 595 up from 595 in 2014, at least 151 of the 720 victims were victims of trafficking. So this guy is seen in a hotspot for human trafficking. And even Ghislaine Maxwell's secret husband, who is Scott Borgenson, this is the really weird thing. She has a secret husband, even though she's been obviously messing around with Jeffrey Epstein. But this person is also a CEO of data for shipping. He does data. He's a CEO of Cargo Metrics. They literally do metrics for shipping, or if you want to take that a step further, they do metrics for trafficking. It's crazy. This is just the amount of like trafficking that like a theme in this case is needs to be explored a bit further. So I'm just happy this guy is going to court with Virginia Giuffre in the civil lawsuit. And Virginia Giuffre actually was offered a settlement of £5 million. And you know what she said? She said, no, because I want to send the message that everybody is the same under the law. And I want to bring this guy into court. And that's what she's going to do. And she also says this is just the start. This is just the beginning, because all parties who are held responsible, i.e. Bill Clinton, I did a video on that, will most likely be in court as well. So hopefully this builds the momentum. And I mean, even with the Ghislaine Maxwell trial verdict, where she was found guilty based on testimonies of 4 brave women, including Anna Farmer and 3 other pseudonyms who testified, including Carolyn, who I did a video on as well. It was enough to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that Ghislaine Maxwell was guilty of trafficking. And, you know, there's evidence surmounting against Prince Andrew. As we speak, people are digging up old photos of him hanging out on cruise ships like a billionaire does. By the way, he's totally funded by taxpayers, but he's hanging out like he living the high life with a bunch of trafficked girls, probably underage. So let me keep reading this. The Duke of York, who was 40 years old at the time, and that's the weird thing. He messed around with Virginia Giuffre, I believe, when he was 41 and she was 17. Like, it's just, you know, it's weird because it's like his daughters were probably around the same age. So I don't know. Does this guy have no morals at all? And also fathered 2 young kids, were snapped with Epstein living it up as he visited red light district clubs and partied with topless women on a yacht. On the trip, it was reported that disgraced socialite Maxwell was also there and apparently was staying at the same hotel as the Duke. News of the trip reemerges as the Duke of York is currently being embroiled in the abuse scandal against Virginia Giuffre. Giuffre alleged that she was trafficked by Epstein and she was forced into relations with the Duke of York when she was just 17. Prince Andrew is also being investigated over his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, which he has vehemently denied. But, you know, there's pictures of him. I mean, the one picture of him that I find really crazy is for his Princess Beatrice altercation for the birthday with Princess Beatrice. He actually invited Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, and Harvey Weinstein to his daughter's 18th birthday. So it's like, hey, you're of age. Here are 3 predators at your birthday. Absolutely crazy, this guy, you know, insane. And I'm just going to show the picture, but I do want to give a little bit of word of warning that this picture may be, what do you say, triggering to some people. So I'm going to be showing the topless girls that he partied with in Thailand who are most likely underage. So I'm sorry if that triggers you, but here it is. It's in my cover, but let me just pull it up. Thank you so much for being here. Please make sure you subscribe, ring the bell so you never miss a live. So I don't know who these women are, but apparently this was a picture that was dug up recently over the case for Virginia Giuffre, where Prince Andrew is living the high life on Queen Elizabeth's dime, trafficking women in a hotspot for trafficking. And he's seen on a ship with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. And these women are most likely underage. And he's just out here, living the high life on the taxpayer's dime. And, he, over the years, he's been known as various things. He's been known as Air Miles Andy. We have Randy Andy. And those were all like kind of funny, But now we're talking about like Handy Andy, which kind of like has a little joke to it. But, we're talking about people who were held against their will, especially Virginia Giuffre. Like her ex-boyfriend comes on the record saying that she didn't want to do anything with Prince Andrew. She was actually forced to be in that situation. She was treated as a slave. So looking at this photo, it looks like he's on a vacation, but then you start realizing these girls are probably held there against their will. And this is all just funded by the taxpayers of the UK. It's not like he worked for this. So I'm just going to read your chats. Savage Squad Exploring writes, we are planning a trip to go visit the place where they found Gabby Petito. We're going to document it for our YouTube. Savage Squad. Cool. And Ricky Day writes, LOL, y'all wanted to see that photo so bad. Dio Savage writes, the past is catching up with him. Good and proper. Alexis Mello writes, that's horrible. Instagram writes, is there any way where I could see more about the Queen thing, guys? Oh, I'll get into the Queen. Paul Jackson writes, remember that according to Virginia Giuffre, he was involved in an ORGY with her and a number of young girls. Who were those girls? Okay, Paul Jackson, that's a really good question. And thank you so much for that question, because I do want to point out that there is a woman named Rita O. And Rita O is one of the women that were involved in those group settings where she actually was one of the people that were. So Jeffrey Epstein accuser Rita O sues Virginia Giuffre for defamation for claiming she recruited young girls to abuse and was his girlfriend. So Virginia Giuffre isn't exactly, her hands aren't clean. Virginia Giuffre had sometimes actually recruited women to partake in these group scenarios. And one of the things about this case here is Virginia Giuffre says that she has a scar on her thigh because Rita O took a knife and during this group setting stabbed her thigh. So scar Rita O. Yeah, there's this picture where there's a scar that of course I can't find it, but Virginia Giuffre has a scar from Rita O because Rita O actually took a knife in those group settings as they were all like doing their adult business and stabbed Virginia Giuffre, and Virginia Giuffre still has a scar from that. So Rita O is kind of covering her own butt and suing Virginia Giuffre for pointing that out. And then also saying that Virginia Giuffre was also a co-conspirator with Epstein to help facilitate those things. So Rita O is an artist, and her Instagram is very cleaned up and it's very like fine art right now. But I actually have a screen grab of one of the pictures she used to draw. She used to draw really dark pictures. of her encounters with Epstein, but she's since deleted all those. And it's pretty crazy. But one of them actually had the picture that I was talking about with the scar, because she actually drew all these group scenarios with like blood and everything, because apparently these parties all had blood involved in it. And Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriends actually used to partake in these group setting scenarios, and they would all like get together. And like, that's the reason why when we talk about Bill Clinton, ritual stab thigh to bleed out. Yeah, it was like kind of like this weird ritual they would do. Like it's a very dark, like people don't understand how dark this is, but Jeffrey Epstein got all of his girlfriends to partake in these group scenarios. So Jeffrey Epstein would date women, and then he would like also serve them up to men, and they would have like a bunch of group scenarios together, adult group scenarios. And so when Jeffrey Epstein was said to have visited the White House 17 times, and he wasn't alone, and he was visiting Bill Clinton, and Jeffrey Epstein signed in his girlfriends, we can only assume that most likely Jeffrey Epstein was partaking in these group scenarios with Bill Clinton. So back to the story here. Thank you for that question. I'll be reading your chats throughout. There are some people that side with Prince Andrew still. And this is the thing about Prince Andrew. You will start seeing that like there's a lot of almost good news Gary. He has this whole team of people that basically spin stories about him to make him sound like a good guy. I think he actually hires a PR firm, Prince Andrew, obviously through his mother's money, not his own money. And he probably uses these people to pay them out, hire a bunch of black hat SEO people is what they're called, to go in the comment section of the Daily Mail and say all these really nice things about Prince Andrew. So this one witness, I'm not buying this article, by the way, but the witness who says he knows Andrew can't sweat, former U.S. intelligence officer who partied and wrestled with the prince, swears the bizarre claim at the heart of his defense in his abuse case is true. So as we all know, Prince Andrew had this disastrous BBC interview back in 2019 where he says he can't sweat because of the Falkland Wars, which was a terrible war, even though it wasn't officially declared a war. The area was declared a war zone. I got very confused, but there were a lot. It was a mass casualty event. It was very dangerous. Prince Andrew flew the helicopter there. And apparently because of the high adrenaline scenario, he, I guess, shorted his system and now he can't sweat. But in the Virginia Giuffre case, Virginia Giuffre with her legal team said, hey, if you can't sweat, prove it. He had no medical evidence. And as you all know, not being able to sweat is kind of a big deal. And the fact that he's never once seen a doctor because of that is just a complete and total lie. I mean, in the Buckingham Palace, there's literally a doctor's office in the Buckingham Palace. And to say that you don't have that information is problematic, as well as the fact that you like to say, I was at Pizza Express in Woking. Yes, Pizzagate is real for all the QAnon conspirators out there. He's literally defending his child trafficking with Pizza Express. And he said that I was in Pizza Express in Woking. Pizza Express in Woking, on their TripAdvisor, they shut off all the ratings because they're facing a lot of backlash over that statement, because they actually can't go on the record and prove that Prince Andrew was there either. And even his own daughter, Princess Beatrice, cannot prove that he was at Pizza Express in Woking. So that is his big, giant excuse, his alibi that he can't prove. But there are people who actually side with him. And that former U.S. intelligence officer has backed up Andrew's claim he cannot sweat. Alan Starkey recalled a night full of dancing, saying Duke did not sweat a drop. He said he felt urged to support his former Fred amid the abuse allegations. Well, that's really funny because, like, honestly, a quick Google search will literally just show you a ton of pictures of Prince Andrew sweating. I mean, like, come on. This guy can sweat. I don't care what you say. Like there's so many pictures, especially this one. I mean, this guy can sweat. Like it's just ridiculous that they're still publishing articles like this. Like, come on. Like, do you really think we're that stupid? Like, I think he does. So apparently he was at Tramp nightclub when he met Virginia Giuffre, but this story says that near midnight and as music pounded through Annabelle's nightclub, a group of laughing friends were making their way back to their table on the edge of the crowded dance floor. It was one of those intimate moments so familiar to regulars at the exclusive venue in London's Mayfair when, after hours of food and dancing, a few people break away from the melee to catch their breath and talk over a quiet drink. This particular group was rather special. It included Prince Andrew and his wife, Sarah Ferguson, and the date was significant too. It was late February 1992, 3 weeks before the couple would announce their separation. For another member of the party, the events of the night that would stick with him down the decades. This was American Alan Starkey's first encounter with the Duke and Duchess of York, whose private lives would become inextricably linked with his over the following 4 years. It was also his first experience of royalty, and he was struck by the way other revelers would part to let the couple pass and how everyone turned to stare at them. But that was not his only memory. The other concerned the appearance of Andrew, who had just turned 32 and was a Royal Navy officer. Starkey noticed that the prince didn't sweat. Quote, it was extremely warm at Annabelle's that night, and Andrew was wearing a blue suit of heavy wool. The evening featured almost constant dancing, and I was watched with amazement as he returned from each dance, escorting rather moist partners, yet always bone dry himself. Wow. So apparently Prince Andrew liked a lot of redheads, and Epstein used to, according to an article I was reading, used to comb the streets for redheads for Prince Andrew. Who knew? Virginia Giuffre, I think, is blonde. He goes on to say, it was extraordinary. The rest of us were perspiring madly, but he didn't seem to have a bead of sweat on him. See, I don't know if is this like Prince Andrew's PR team? Like, seriously. Like, there's just so many pictures of him sweating. So I don't understand why this article would even get published. I really feel like people are just trying to put out good evidence for him. People are just an independently highly reliable witness, of course. Truth will out. Wait, what? It's so bizarre. Let me just read your comments right here. Mary Green writes, Fergie went to the islands lots of times. Okay, so Mary, I've heard a lot of different rumors. I've heard that Meghan Markle was a yacht girl, and I've heard that now Sarah Ferguson went to the islands with him. So was she a co-conspirator as well? That's a kind of very interesting information. Leslie P. writes, a few corrections for you. He does not live in Buckingham Palace. He lives at Royal Cottage in Windsor. I knew I got that wrong. His salary is based on his royal duties, not vacay, and security can only be removed by Parliament. Yeah, so as I was saying, he was living in Buckingham Palace. I was like, I read so many articles where it's like, he lives in Windsor. He lives in Windsor. I'm like, but I didn't know exactly where in Windsor, so I just said Buckingham Palace. But thank you so much for that. He lives at Royal Cottage in Windsor. I'm going to start saying that. Thank you. Oro Restripo writes, the royal family have an invisible contact with the British media. And that's exactly it. So I'm going to get into some more articles here. I asked you guys if Prince Andrew should be stripped of his royal protection. And 88% of you guys said yes. 12% of you guys said no. And I thought that was very interesting because this is an exclusive article that came out that Prince Andrew is stripped of 24-hour armed security and loses bodyguards as he is not a working royal. And this is kind of, I'm going to get raked through the coals and you guys can say what you want. I don't really care. But I'm actually kind of surprised that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle got their royal protection stripped after their titles were removed, but Prince Andrew still has not. I've kind of find that a little bit of a weird double standard. And I actually kind of slowly started looking into the queen after all this and how there's issues in the royal family where there are family members who do these sort of behaviors. You know, a lot of people like to bring up Savile, this guy named Savile. And it was actually one of Prince Charles's friends. And this guy Savile is infamous for doing this sort of behavior. Jimmy Savile, he has over 500 child victims. He does the exact same thing as Prince Andrew. Jimmy Savile from BBC was a DJ. And we talk about the BBC a lot on here, how they're actually very corrupt. But Jimmy Savile was Prince Charles's best friend. And, you know, this sort of history is repeating itself. We see Prince Andrew being best friends with Epstein. It's the same story. There's a lot of evidence within the royal family that this sort of predatory behavior takes place. There was actually a cousin that had the same sort of allegations against him. I mean, if we want to go further with this, we can talk about how the royal family kind of blew off Princess Diana's mental health issues. We also have the same thing with Meghan Markle, where she actually was feeling really like she was going to self-harm. And that's the reason why Prince Harry got out of the royal family and stepped back, was because he didn't want to repeat the cycle that happened with Princess Diana. Then we also have Princess Charles, who apparently cheated on Princess Diana with Camilla. And then Camilla could very well be the next queen, because the Queen Elizabeth II actually awarded her with a new title. So it's kind of preparing the UK public for her potentially becoming queen. And this is where I have an issue with Prince Andrew still being in succession for the throne. Prince Andrew is 9th in line for the throne. You know who else was 9th in line for the throne? Queen Elizabeth. So you may see that 9th in line, oh, it's not going to happen. But Queen Elizabeth became queen and she was 9th in line at 1.2. So this could very well happen that Prince Andrew could end up somehow maneuvering his way to become king. And I just think it's so wrong that we have a guy who stepped back from royal duties, has all these allegations against him, and is still in line for the throne, is beyond crazy to me. And, you know, a lot of you guys in the chats, when I'm reading the chats, say you need to look closer at Queen Elizabeth and her sort of behavior and how she kind of turns a blind eye to all this too. And I just want to say one story here. I am Canadian. And we have this huge problem here with residential schools where Aboriginal Native American children were buried under all these residential schools. And it was basically genocide and of Native American people. And there was this one story that someone said in my comments that said when Queen Elizabeth visited Canada, she made the Native children bend down and kiss her boots. So I don't know if I'm going to get raked through the coals with that, but that's just someone said in my comments that really stuck with me. And I was just like, is Queen Elizabeth everything I want her to be in my head? Because I loved her before I started covering the story. And then now when when all these allegations happen from Virginia Giuffre, and Virginia Giuffre was, you know, being tossed around with these different scenarios for her to get out of this lawsuit, for Prince Andrew to get out of this lawsuit, such as Prince Andrew used the excuse, I never received the court papers. So apparently the court papers were served to him at Windsor, wherever he is in Windsor. Someone corrected me. I always forget it. I always think they all live in the Buckingham Palace in Windsor, and it was handed to the guard, and the guard just basically protected him from getting the papers. So he said he never got it. Then his second excuse was Virginia Giuffre is Australian. She is from, you know, out of the jurisdiction of where she can serve me these papers. And the third one was that Epstein's settlement, who's a dead convicted criminal, protects him. And that just made the royal family look so bad. But luckily, Judge Kaplan threw all those reasons out and he's now going to court. But if Queen Elizabeth just put her foot down and said, you know what, son, you're going to be a Duke of York. You're going to represent the monarchy. You're going to own up to this and go to court instead of trying to gaslight the UK public and everybody involved. I think this would have done better. And I think Queen Elizabeth has every right to say that because she's the one paying Prince Andrew's bills. She's the one letting him live at the cottage in Windsor. She's the one giving him the allowance. She's the one who gave him the HRH title. She's the one who gave him the Duke of York title. Queen Elizabeth, wake up. Wake up, sis. Wake up. Wake up. Raise your children. Parent better. Like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how you guys feel. No, not the Queen, Mary Green writes. Mrs. J writes, he is just the tip of the iceberg. Heaven's calling my names. They are all guilty. Exactly. They're all guilty. Yvette Morsel writes, I'm Canadian too, and that is awful. I would never kiss anyone's shoes or boots. We are all equal human beings, royal or not. Duran Dizzy writes, the Queen eat the Canadian missing children, turn into her lizard alien self, and just munch them all. And that's the thing. Princess Diana called the Queen Elizabeth and everybody lizards at one point. She actually called them lizards. So there's this big conspiracy that they're actually lizard people. I don't know if that's true. I don't know what you guys think, but that's pretty funny how you brought that up. Okay, so the whole family are at it. They are all strange and think we should all bow down to them. Well, no more. Body found on Sandringham Estate. Young man seen falling from Buckingham Palace, Jackie Porter writes. Exactly. So there is this young woman. Thank you for bringing that up, Jackie. On Sandringham Estate, there's an unsolved murder. And it's where Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein used to shoot. And she was 17 years old, the same age as Virginia Giuffre. And this is an unsolved murder. And it went nowhere. It's from 2012, UK royal murder mystery after body found on Queen's private Sandringham estate. So is it possible that they accidentally shot somebody, or was this woman trafficked and she knew too much and they killed her on the Sandringham estate? Her name, I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher her name, but her name is Alyssa Dimitrieva, and she is Latvian, and her body was found on the Sandringham estate. She was the same age as Virginia Giuffre. So is it possible that this was one of Epstein's slaves and that she was disposed of on the Sandringham estate? Because this case in particular smells of a huge cover-up. And I just want to say that it smells of something that, there's not a lot of information out there online about her. And it just kind of sounds like they were covered it up, essentially. But let's get back into it. So Prince Andrew could be stripped of 24-hour armed security and loses royal bodyguards because he's not a working royal. Prince Andrew could lose his round-the-clock police protection as early as next month after he was exiled as a frontline royal. Sources say a full review of his security is being carried out by the Met Police and the Home Office following last week's decision by the Queen to strip her son of his remaining military and charitable affiliations to stop using the HRH title. But here's the thing about how this article is saying the Queen did it. I've heard various reports, that it was actually Prince William and potentially Prince Charles who were instrumental in removing the titles of the Duke of Porks. But people also call him his royal buffoon is his nickname because he's known to bully all his staff. More on that in a bit. Prince Andrew is a bully, but giving credit to the Queen is not the way we're going to do this. It was actually more so the public, I think, who voiced their opinions and said that you need to strip him of these titles, like including this just being on YouTube, all the backlash involved. I think the Queen actually did start listening to the public and also her family, but I think this article is giving the Queen too much credit. The article continues, he must now fight claims of assault in the US courts as a private citizen. And that's the thing also with this. He was stripped of all these titles, so he's no longer HRH. But is that because they're trying to protect the royal family's money at the end of the day, because if he's a private citizen and he ends up getting sued, he's on the hook for it, not the monarchy, because he's no longer affiliated with the monarchy and their titles. So was this actually just a way for them to maneuver them not getting sued, the royal family not getting sued? I don't know. Or did it have to do more with, you know, pleasing the public and having this guy just fail at doing his job, essentially? Or was, as I said before, was it just a way for them to protect their own butts for not being on the hook for all this money that she's going to sue for? So he's not very happy. He's still ninth in line with the throne, and Harry had all of his protection removed. And here's the thing about Prince Harry, was he had his protection removed while they were in Canada. And this was during the pandemic. They got the phone call from the Queen while they had their protection in Canada and said, the Queen was like, no, you're not going to get your protection anymore. Hung up. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle with their child is in Canada. It just got their protection removed in the middle of a pandemic. They're like sharks swimming. They were like fish in swimming with the sharks, because all their royal protection were removed just spontaneously. And they actually had to fly to LA and live with a friend during that time because they had no security. Like they were, you know, swimming with the sharks in Canada when Queen Elizabeth made that move. And honestly, like, I just think that's so wrong that they got the rug pulled out from under them in the middle of a pandemic, and they were left with no security. And, you know, it's just crazy that Prince Andrew is facing these huge allegations. There's pictures of him partying in Thailand, which is a hotspot for child trafficking, surfacing. I mean, there's obviously pictures of him hanging out with Ghislaine Maxwell, who is a criminal. The idea that he's not getting this removed after all of his titles were removed as well is absolutely crazy to me. So Harry is demanding he and his family are given protection by specially trained Scotland Yard officers when he returns to the UK, even if he pays for it himself. Obviously, the royal family are saying no because Scotland Yard isn't for hire, and it will never be. It's obviously a conflict of interest. And I agree, but I think at least, you know, he should be able to somehow work out a deal with them, because Prince Charles has never seen his grandchildren, and that's obviously where Prince Harry is from. So I hope they can work out a deal. Quote, although no one will comment on it publicly, this is an issue that is now actively being discussed by the Met's Royal and VIP Executive Committee. The situation regards to Harry is awkward and may prompt a decision sooner rather than later. If Harry, who is no longer a working royal, does not get security in the UK, then why should Andrew? End quote. Exactly. So here it is. Andrew, who lives in a 30-room royal lodge on the Queen's Windsor estate, will always benefit from the round-the-clock protection that comes with living in proximity to a royal residence. And of course, this is the infamous picture, Prince Andrew with Ghislaine Maxwell in that London loft, that London townhouse, which is currently being sold. And you can actually see pictures inside that London townhouse because it's being sold. And you can see where they actually, you know, did the dirty. Here, I'll try to pull it up. Ghislaine Maxwell townhouse for sale. You can actually see inside of it. London. Interesting. So this is the townhouse. It's going up for sale, and you can actually see inside of it, but for some reason, Google's just not cooperating with me. Anyway. Yeah, so it's if we're moving on here, you know, I kind of spoke a little about eugenics, but something that an article I came across real fast, and I'll just touch on this quickly, is Epstein's obsession with genetics. Is there a link with 23andMe? So I'm going to read your comments right now, actually. Prince Philip was German, not British. His name was horrible, so he changed it to Mountbatten. The royals are not British, so you Brits can ease up. Maria D writes. Samantha Mustard McConnell writes, this is old news to a lot of us. Some of us do research before commenting. Joseph Morris. Tim Archer writes, Andrew had a relationship with Maxwell at uni, and her father went to Buckingham Palace and asked the Queen the intention of her son to his daughter. Tim Archer, Andrew had a relationship with Maxwell at uni. Yeah, so Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell all met at Oxford University. So that is interesting. Thank you for your comments. This is something that I came across recently was Epstein, how he's affiliated with genetics. So in 2012, Jeffrey Epstein launched a company called Southern Trust, whose goal was to carry out DNA data mining services. Perhaps one of the most puzzling things about this company, which was run from his Virgin Island estate, was that supposedly had pulled in over $200 million in revenues. So Jeffrey Epstein started this genetic DNA data mining services. And Epstein had become obsessed with transhumanism, the belief that people can artificially improve the human body using technology. Very, very creepy stuff. And one of the most successful and prominent DNA startup companies is 23andMe, founded by Ann Wojcik. It's a DNA company that sells direct-to-consumer genetic testing kits. Wojcik was at the time of starting the company the wife of Google co-founder Sergey Brin. Brin, perhaps the most powerful technology executive in the world, also provided startup capital for the company alongside Hoffman LaRoche-owned Genentech. Google, of course, pioneered the immensely profitable business model of providing software to consumers for free and then selling consumers' personal data to advertisers. 23andMe has gone a step further. They actually charge consumers money to voluntarily provide their DNA, which the company then sells to pharmaceutical companies and research laboratories. Harvey Weinstein and Wendy Murdoch became early investors in the company and were active in promoting it. So Epstein was really good friends with Wojcik, who is the founder of 23andMe, and he's went to a lot of diners with them, and he was just really good friends with them. So Epstein was very interested in genetics, and he had his own startup at one point, and he was friends with the founder of 23andMe. And it's all just, we don't really know the connection here. And this article is quite long, but it doesn't really come to a conclusion. Why is he so into genetics? But it does kind of raise a lot of flags, doesn't it? Ann Wojcik. Wojcicki. That's it. Wojcicki. That's her name. So Prince Andrew's lawyer, Andrew Brettler, has another new client, Chris Noth, aka Mr. Big from Sex and the City. He's also represented Cosby, Bryan Singer, Weinstein, and Armie Hammer. What does he do for these guys that's worth $2,000 an hour? So the lawyer that's representing Prince Andrew is a high-profile Hollywood lawyer, and Chris Noth just recently actually hired him. So Andrew Brettler, an attorney for Noth, said no one from any law enforcement agency has contacted Chris or any of his representatives, adding, obviously, if anyone does reach out, we'll cooperate fully. So Andrew Brettler is a high-profile lawyer, and Prince Andrew is obviously using his services, and they're not cheap. $2,000 an hour. And this is something that I came across with Prince Andrew, just raking his name through the coals, and why I think he should lose his Duke of York title as well as his 24-hour protection. Obviously, because Prince Harry has gotten both of those for much less. Like Prince Harry lost his protection. But something that is, kind of drawing parallels with the Meghan Markle and Prince Harry case is Meghan Markle had allegations of bullying. But the thing about Meghan Markle was that she was done so dirty in the media. She was treated as sort of a scapegoat people just kind of used her to put the spotlight on so that their scandals and their problems will be hidden as well. Because Meghan Markle, apparently made someone cry in the royal family. I think it was either Kate Middleton or Kate Middleton's assistant. And then Kate Middleton fired her assistant after her assistant came back from her honeymoon. And this was a while ago, but this kind of led a lot of the public to speculate that Meghan Markle was a bully and that there's actually some sort of investigation within the royal family because of these allegations. But there's actually more speculation that the reason why Kate Middleton was crying was because Prince William was cheating on her and that her assistant knew too much and fired her. That's what everybody's saying now, and saying that Prince William actually is hooking up with Kate Middleton's best friend, Rose Hanbury. And Kate Middleton had to UK public say freeze her off because of the affair Prince William had. And people actually take it a step further, saying that Prince William had a love child with Rose Hanbury. And that's the real reason why. It's not because of Meghan Markle being a bully. But regardless, there is actually an inquest into the royal family because of Meghan Markle's alleged bullying. Although some people would actually say that there was never bullying. It was actually just a way to gaslight the public into hiding their own scandals. So I'm just going to play a little clip here and I'm going to drink some tea. But this is a clip of Kate Middleton flinching away from Prince William's touch.
I think what made this worse for Kate was that there were members of the press on Twitter confirming it and saying they knew about it for ages. Then a year before that, he was caught at the club, and the next morning with the model.
So I'm going to be gangster with everybody. I did not even get a chance to watch that. I'm going to replay that.
I think what made this worse for Kate was that there were members of the press on Twitter confirming it and saying they knew about it for ages. Then a year before that, he was caught at the club, and the next morning with the model.
Yeah, so if I'm playing this again, there's the Twitch. I thought that was Taylor Swift at first. So that's Kate Middleton flinching away.
I think what made this worse for Kate was that there were members of the press on Twitter confirming it and saying they knew about it for ages. Then a year before that, he was caught at the club, and the next morning with the model.
So I don't know how you guys feel about that, but looking into everything that Prince Andrew has done and just if you want to kind of, I get life's not fair, but if you want to look at everything and how Prince Harry was treated versus how Prince Andrew was treated, there's this story that came out that Prince Andrew had this bizarre argument with his brother over the toilet. So this is how childish Prince Andrew is. Queen had to step in after Prince Andrew rolled with Charles about royal toilet. A former Buckingham Palace maid said the Queen had to step in to resolve a row. Janet McGowan said Prince Andrew and Prince Charles argued over a toilet. She claimed that Andrew refused to move his toiletries from Charles's bathroom. The row at Sandringham in 1999 was resolved when the Queen stepped in, she said. The Queen had to step in to resolve a row after Prince Andrew took a bathroom that was reserved for Prince Charles, a former maid had claimed. And so all the maids right now, what happens in these situations with Virginia Giuffre and Prince Andrew being brought to the spotlight, people are starting to not be afraid to speak out about Prince Andrew. And we've gotten a lot of stories. We got him with his 60 stuffed animals wanting to be lined up a certain way. We got information about him, forcing a maid to close the blinds immediately and, forcing her to close the blinds and making her run up the stairs to close them, even though he's apparently a war hero that can't close his own blinds. Then we have him having to be only served lukewarm water. There's things about him having a issue with mangoes. apparently there's this article where he had a freak out about his mangoes at dinner, and Prince Harry raised his eyebrows. There's so many stories like that. The maid got bit by a dog and then he laughed at her. He makes inappropriate jokes about women's bodies. There's one woman who was pregnant and he made a crack about how her chest got bigger. There's also another story about how an Olympian's wife was riding a bike and she stopped at a stoplight, and then Prince Andrew checked her out and looked down her top. The stories against Prince Andrew and his behavior and what kind of person he is. There's someone on Loose Women named Diana who said he was talking really poorly about Princess Diana at a dinner table, and she actually called him out, and then he got really offended. Like, he's been described so many times as arrogant, and especially by the staff at the Royal Palace. And I mean, if Meghan Markle has an investigation against her, I think Prince Andrew does too. So if I'm continuing on, the Queen had to step in to resolve a row. Janet McGowan said the row, which took place at Christmas in 1999, was only resolved when the Queen intervened and spoke to Andrew, who was 39 at the time. He sleeps with teddy bears. He's 39 years old. This guy has a lot of issues. Miss McGowan, who was a housemaid from 1999 to 2000, claimed household staff were alerted to an ongoing situation after the Queen's second son took a bathroom reserved for Charles, then 51. She told the Sun, quote, "We were told not to move anything and not to touch anything in that bathroom because there was an ongoing situation." End quote. McGowan, who had traveled to Sandringham with the family, said members of the royal family are allocated rooms and a bathroom at the Norfolk estate, but Andrew had taken a bathroom meant for Charles. She said the bizarre standoff was only diffused when the Queen had words with Andrew and tell him to use another bathroom. Miss McGowan insisted there was nothing special about the bathroom, saying it was a good old sibling row. She added, quote, "Charles was very grown up about it, which is more than you can say for Andrew." End quote. When Miss McGowan worked at Buckingham Palace, Andrew was living permanently at the London residence, with the former maid describing him as spoiled. Miss McGowan, who went on to work for Princess Michael of Kent and the Earl and Countess of Wessex, said of the squabble, quote, "I think it was very petulant. Andrew's very spoiled with regards to his own rights," end quote. So very interesting. He was living at the Buckingham Palace during the time. So meanwhile, another maid at Buckingham Palace has spoken out about working for Andrew, calling the Duke of York demanding and entitled. Charlotte Brinks claimed on Thursday that she was left in tears by Andrew's foul-mouthed rants and on one occasion faced his wrath over a tiny gap in his curtains. Speaking to the Sun, Miss Briggs said the prince yelled at her, quote, "Can't you effing do anything right," end quote, as she ran up and down the stairs to fix the curtains, some of which he was sitting a matter of yards away. Very interesting. So this guy needs to face the same sort of repercussions Prince Harry and Meghan Markle did. I think so. He needs to face an inquest into bullying as well. And he needs to lose his royal patronages. So, of all kinds, even the Duke of York. So I'm going to be reading your chats. Oops, I voted the wrong way on the survey. Never trust rights. I think you can do the chats. Oh, thank you so much for the super chat, Tammy Lee. It's been awesome hanging out with you. Heaven's calling my name. The stuffed animals speak volumes. He never had parents. He is stuck in the child phase and hence became a child predator. Or who knows? Maine, he was mimicking his own childhood. Exactly. And I was kind of looking into cults the other day and how there's some cults on the planet that have this almost like child abuse going on. And it's just so normal to them that that's just how they're raised, that they have no problem doing it to another child. And honestly, it kind of reminded me of the royal family. It kind of reminded me of like a weird cult where these things are just normal and everyday things. So who knows? Maybe that's actually what's going on with the royal family. Tammy Lee, you're so welcome. So happy you're covering this. Thank you. If I'm kind of being like a little bit tooting my own horn a bit, I'm on Virginia Giuffre's side because I just feel like I'm kind of giving the voice to the voiceless. And, you know, as a YouTuber, I think when we talk about the BBC and how the BBC is covering this case, they used Ghislaine Maxwell's brother during primetime, Ian Maxwell, to go on primetime BBC and defend his sister after the Ghislaine Maxwell trial verdict. Then they used Alan Dershowitz. I don't know how to say his name. I just call him Dersh. If you come here to learn how to pronounce names, probably not the right YouTube channel for you. But Dersh has the same sort of allegations up against him by Virginia Giuffre, and the BBC presented him as a neutral law official, a neutral law commentator, when obviously he's going to try to say that Virginia Giuffre is lying. So I think the odds are stacked up against Virginia Giuffre. And I really feel at the end of the day, it's up to me and you and the public to really speak out about this and get the conversation going, that the Queen needs to step up and parent, because this has gone way too far. And that's something Virginia Giuffre even said as well. She said, you know, if Prince Andrew just apologized, something along those lines, this would never have happened. But the reality is he's not going to own up to it. He's just going to keep using these really dumb excuses, and that's just going to cause more grief for him in the long run. So this story is not over. Hi, Jill Glasgow here. Queen Nessie, hello. You should check out Rod Slaw on here. He's been covering this too from a legal perspective, Lisa Bose writes. I will. Worse, Epstein Mossad always records their victims to blackmail them. Facts, Worse writes. You know, that's a really good point, Worse. That's her flinching. But the picture of Bill Clinton right here, massage. I think this picture was actually blackmail for Bill Clinton, because how did Jeffrey Epstein make all his money? He actually blackmailed a bunch of high ranking officials. And I think this picture was actually used for blackmail, because back in those days, it's not like they had phone cameras to snap all these photos. No, they were taking pictures of people to be used to get money out of them. And that's how I think Epstein made all his money, especially when you look at how Wexner, who is the CEO of L Brands and Victoria's Secret and Bed, Bath and Body Works, I think it is, you know, that place with all those really bad scented candles. I hate to break it to you, but that guy who owns those companies gave all of his estate to Jeffrey Epstein. Bed, Bath, and Body Works, I think it's called, and Victoria's Secret, Wexner, gave all his assets to Epstein. Why? Most likely because Epstein had dirt on him. He most likely gave him the New York City residence, which is the most expensive private residence in New York City to live in, over to Epstein, I think for like $1, because Epstein had blackmail against him. And who knows what Epstein had on a bunch of high-ranking officials. And that's a really weird thing about this case, is the FBI, quote unquote, lost those tapes. And Epstein was, quote unquote, committed suicide in jail, even though a lot of people think that Epstein either faked his own death or was murdered because he knew too much. And some people think it could have been the Mossad, which is the Israeli spies. And obviously because Ghislaine Maxwell's dad was a part of the Mossad as well. He died suspiciously, very similarly to Jeffrey Epstein. So it's so weird how history kind of repeats itself. Like Ghislaine Maxwell had a dad who died very suspiciously and had a boyfriend who died in a very suspicious way. And if you actually kind of look at both of their deaths, Epstein and Mr. Maxwell's death, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, there's so many similarities there. And there's also speculation that both Epstein and Mr. Maxwell were in the Mossad. So thank you for bringing that up. Prince Charles infuriated Prince Andrew with ban from balcony. Hasn't got it over it. So this is news to me. Prince Charles is said to have been infuriated Prince Andrew after the Prince of Wales excluded his brother from a key part of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee celebrations. So right now the Queen is having the Diamond Jubilee. I think she's on some some sort of pilgrimage to a certain area to get ready for it right now. More on that in a bit. But I think the Jubilee is going to be stolen by Prince Andrew if he shows up. And, they're trying to not let him steal the show because obviously this is about the Queen and her 70-year anniversary as a Queen, the Platinum Jubilee. So Andrew could be stripped of his bodyguards as early as next month after the Duke of York lost his military titles and royal patronage. He could have faced a full civil trial later this year over allegations. The Duke of York strenuously denies them. So controversy surrounding Andrew also means he could be excluded from the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. He also endured disappointment during the Queen's Diamond Jubilee celebrations in 2012. According to a report, Andrew was excluded from celebrations on the balcony at Buckingham Palace. On the final day of the Jubilee, when the service of Thanksgiving at St. Paul's Cathedral drew to a close, neither Andrew, Prince Edward, nor Princess Anne were at the celebration lunch for 700 people given for the Queen by the livery companies at Westminster Hall. This coincided with Andrew being furious with his brother. So the report claimed that Prince of Wales drove a dagger through the heart of Andrew after he was excluded from the key part of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. Andrew was angrily telling a senior figure how he and others in the family are being pushed to the margins of royal life. He was said to be upset that his daughters, Princess Eugenie and Princess Beatrice, were being dissuaded from carrying out royal duties. The report added that Andrew blamed Charles rather than the Queen and Prince Philip. He saw Charles as effectively running the show. A senior royal figure said the idea was very simple, really. Charles was to be allowed to begin to initiate some of the changes in style he would want when he becomes king. But a friend of the Duke of York responded, the speed and suddenness with which Charles has acted has taken Andrew's breath away. It's dreadfully high-handed. So there's a bunch, as you can tell with the bathroom, the toilet row between Prince Charles and Prince Andrew, there is a lot of tension between them. And obviously Prince Charles was very instrumental in stripping his brother of his titles. So he's obviously preparing to be king and Camilla's preparing to be queen. So very kind of interesting information that he was taken out of the balcony. I actually didn't read that anywhere. Yeah, according to a report at the time, Andrew was excluded from celebrations on the balcony at Buckingham Palace. So that's some crazy news. Also, I talk a lot about Fergie's relationship with Prince Andrew and how they still live together and how they're seen together. I mean, they're always seen together in driving around the Windsor estate. But what's really bizarre about their relationship is that after they were divorced, they still lived together. And Prince Andrew had kept her bride dress in his closet for a very long time. He apparently slept with Fergie in the bed with all those stuffed animals around them. I mean, one pillow had the word daddy on it. And then more information comes out. Prince Andrew kept Sarah Ferguson's makeup post-divorce, which is taking it even one step further because the bride dress, I get, it's an important moment in your life and maybe you just left it in the closet, but the makeup thing is a little weird. So a former royal maid, Charlotte, reveals Andrew kept Fergie's wedding dress and makeup with him even after moving back with the Queen to Buckingham Palace. She told The Sun, although she didn't live there, her makeup was still laid out on a dressing table. I used to have to pick up all these eyeliners, mascaras, and powders, dust underneath them, and lay them back out every single day. But she was never there. She didn't live there, and she certainly wasn't welcome back after what she'd been up to. Her clothes were there, so too were her shoes, and even her wedding dress was still hung up in the wardrobe. It was creepy. It was all laid as if she was there. I couldn't understand why I was cleaning around it all when she wasn't going to be coming back. He moved back home and she wasn't welcome. I polished the dressing table every day, but I never saw her. Very weird, eh? I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. It's a little creepy. And they're still seen together. So this is just recently. This is yesterday. They were seen driving through Windsor Estate together as friend says Duke could have his royal patronages restored if he wins the legal battle against him while the Queen is still alive. So this is some speculation that if he does win the battle against Virginia Giuffre, all of his titles will come back. But I kind of think in the court of public opinion, there's no coming back from this. But either way, Sarah Ferguson is always by his side no matter what, which is crazy. And even, I don't know if you guys saw this video, I played it on my channel, but Prince William just ignores the question about Prince Andrew. So I don't know what's going on with them, but it seems like the royal family is standing by his side, except for his brother, Prince Charles, as well as Prince William. So there's people who are basically around the world taking their own stand against them. I mean, in Nova Scotia, we had Prince Andrew High School being renamed to a different high school name because they didn't want to be affiliated with Prince Andrew anymore, given the allegations against him. Then we also have Prince Andrew bid to block Union flag flying on birthday. So apparently, I didn't know this, but they fly the flag. 3 political parties have called for the Union flag not to be flown on Belfast City Hall to mark Prince Andrew's birthday this year. So we had basically military personnel feeling uncomfortable with toasting to Prince Andrew during this time. And so and we also had veterans signing a huge petition to remove Prince Andrew of his military titles. Then we have this information coming out that they don't want to fly the Union flag on his birthday. So it really is up to, again, the public to show that they don't consent to Prince Andrew being a part of the royal family. Because going back to the Economist article, The Economist, royal family consent, the harm Prince Andrew does to the crowd. This is a really awesome article. But hereditary monarchy rests on consent. A sexual assault case undermines that. And this is actually it. So it's just a really good opening line that you can't just be expecting other people to give you consent when you can't give it to other people. Like, as RuPaul says, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else if you can't love yourself, kind of thing. Like, you can't just have your cake and eat it too, Prince Andrew. And I mean, it's very problematic. So they're happy to support an alternative day. And again, going back to Prince William was very involved in stripping Prince Andrew's title with Queen Elizabeth's support. So it seems like Prince William and Prince Charles are both turning their backs on him. But of course, it's Queen Elizabeth's favorite son and she has a hard time doing that. And then Prince Harry holds secret talk with Prince Charles in bid to heal rift ahead of Queen's Platinum Jubilee. So as you all know, Prince Harry wants to go back to the UK because obviously he's from there and his family's there. And Prince Charles and him, Prince Charles obviously wants to see his grandchildren, but there's obviously problems with Prince Harry's security. And right now, Prince Harry has held secret talks with Prince Charles in a bid to heal the rift ahead of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, because I guess the Queen wants to, have her Jubilee and have Prince Harry there as well. It follows Harry's claims he's been stripped of money and security. He is said to have reached out to his father, and palace officials expect him to return to the UK this summer, even if it's on his own. One source said there has been a definite thaw in relations between Harry and Charles. They are on much better terms and have been having friendly chats and video calls. It has been suggested to Harry he may live to regret any lingering family bitterness, and he has taken that on board. There is a feeling he's coming back more into the fold and wants to be closer to his family, end quote. The royals are expecting Harry to return from his California home for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee in June, but it could be without Meghan, 40, Archie, 2, and 7-month-old Lilibet. It is not clear if Harry, 37, will return for Prince Philip's memorial, expected in March or April. Buckingham Palace was approached for comment. So yeah, that's their Christmas card, and I thought it was very sweet. You got Lilibet there, who's their new daughter. Very beautiful. That's the thing about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. They know how to take a good photo. As much as you hate them, this is a good photo. So, I mean, obviously Prince Charles hasn't seen his grandchildren in quite some time. So, and I think Prince Harry obviously wants to be there for the 70th anniversary for the Queen. So I don't know what you guys think. Let me just read your chats and I'm going to have some tea. He's coming back for a reason is not to see the grandchildren. Mary Green writes, I'm going to end this poll. Okay, so Michael Aw2 writes, Andrew stripped the stripper and the stripper stripped him in the end. Okay, I'm going to have to steal that, Michael. More Sarah writes, I don't think he is even Tom Cruise anymore. Looks nothing like him. Interesting. Wasn't it Philip who was best mates with Savile? Paul writes. And yeah, Paul, we actually had a little discussion about that, how Paul, that's a very good point. You know, history kind of repeats itself. In this case, we had Prince Philip with Savile. I'm gonna have to get this right. Philip Savile. Jimmy Savile. I think everybody's talking about Prince Charles. Yeah, I was gonna say Prince Philip. Sometimes I'm just like, I talk for like 3 hours and I just get things wrong. Sorry about that. Okay, so it's kind of funny how history kind of repeats itself. Jimmy Savile causes concern with behavior on visits to Prince Charles. So, you know, this guy, I was doing research on Jimmy Savile, and the weird thing about Jimmy Savile is it's actually hard to find allegations against Jimmy Savile. So this is really, really creepy. And thank you for bringing this up. So here's the thing that really stood out to me. And I actually had to research for like 20 minutes to find this information because I was like, it was very hard to dig up information on Jimmy Savile. So believe it or not, in my opinion. But this is what it wrote. By 19th December, 8 people had been questioned as part of the investigation. Okay, this is crazy. The Met stated that the total number of alleged victims was 589, of whom 450 alleged abuse by Savile. So 450 victims of Savile. This guy was a radio DJ for the BBC. No wonder it's hard to find these allegations against him. This guy, like, it's similar to Maxwell's. They control the media. I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell had this secret Reddit account that was a huge contributor to the news. So if I'm going here, Maxwell Hill, user Maxwell Hill. This is Ghislaine Maxwell's Reddit account. And it's one of the most powerful accounts on Reddit. And its karma is in like the top 5 Reddit accounts, 15 million. It's a huge contributor to the world news subreddit. So more than likely, Ghislaine Maxwell was actually controlling the news on Reddit. And obviously, you know, I talked to this one guy after one of my lives who believes that Robert Murdoch was involved in this as well. And as we all know, Rupert Murdoch controls a lot of the news too. And Ghislaine Maxwell was actually seen partying with The Atlantic, one of the editors, the owner of The Atlantic magazine. And then shortly after them hanging out, they released a piece called Child Trafficking is a Myth, and it's blown out of proportion. So people are just kind of like, where is this information, you know? Especially because what I kind of talk about a lot on my YouTube is, why aren't there more people being brought forward if the FBI has all these tapes of people? You know, we talked about how Bill Clinton is seen being massaged by one of Epstein's victims. Why aren't more people just being arrested left and right is absolutely insane to me. So yeah, it's funny how history kind of repeats itself with Jimmy Savile and Prince Charles. Thank you for bringing that up. So exactly. So Prince Andrew could be shadowing the Queen's Jubilee. And obviously he won't be on the balcony shot because he wasn't in for the Diamond Jubilee, and he still very much hates his brother for that. So this is what I've kind of found interesting. Prince Andrew should face royal bullying probe like Meghan Markle. So Paul Page claims he personally made 3 separate complaints to palace officials. An ex-royal cop has called for Buckingham Palace to launch a probe into Prince Andrew over bullying claims. They say the same way they did to Meghan Markle. Paul Page, who previously worked in the Royal Protection Command from 1998 until 2004, claims he personally made 3 separate complaints to palace officials. And Paul alleges that he is aware of at least a dozen other reports made by colleagues. Mr. Page, who revelations this week sparked a string of complaints about the prince, said, quote, Buckingham Palace launched a bullying investigation against Meghan Markle last year after she was accused of wrongdoing. If it's a fair organization that looks after its staff, an investigation should be started to confirm whether or not Andrew is guilty of being bullying and intimidating staff. He alleges complaints he raised during his service were ignored because senior courtiers did not want to create a stir. Mr. Page told the Mirror, the palace have a problem because there are instances and evidence of Prince Andrew being overbearing and verbally abusive. He said in an ITV documentary this week that Andrew would shout and scream if his collection of toy bears on his bed were not placed in the exact position by maids. That prompted the prince's former maid, Charlotte Briggs, 47, to come forward with allegations. She accused Andrew, then in his 30s, of foul-mouthed rants and ludicrous demands. Yeah, so we talked about the curtains. We talked about the bed, this teddy bears. So it is kind of crazy. But so the Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth, raged at Prince Andrew for destroying the monarchy's reputation. And obviously she's under a lot of pressure. It's obviously the pandemic for her. She just lost her husband, Prince Philip, last year. So she's going through a lot. And apparently, according to somebody, he was subject to a scolding from the Queen Mother after she accused him of, quote, destroying the monarchy's reputation with his participation in an embarrassing charity TV event. According to the late author Ross Benson, the Queen Mother is the subject of a 3-part series that concludes this weekend. The Queen Mother examines the colorful life of Elizabeth Angela Marguerite Bowes-Lyon, one of the most popular royals in modern history. While this year marks 20 years since she died, her legacy remains. She helped stabilize the royal family after Prince Andrew felt the full wrath of her anger after a television appearance, Ross Benson claims in his 1993 book, Charles the Untold Story. Interesting. Andrew appeared on It's a Royal Knockout alongside several other royal seniors, but is reported to have infuriated his grandmother with his behavior. Mr. Benson wrote she summoned Andrew to visit her immediately afterwards and made him swear that he would never take part in anything similar in the future. She was reported to have told him that it reduced the royals to the ranks of second-rate comedians. Mr. Benson continued, the Queen's mother's face was white with rage, and she reminded her grandchild of the abdication and the danger that had posed to the monarchy, end quote. Which is very interesting because I wonder how his grandmother would feel now that he used a Epstein settlement to try to get out of a sexual abuse case. I think the grandmother would be very upset over that. Let me just take a break and read your chats. Okay, so Jen Work writes, all this bullying, triggering, speaking my truth BS needs to stop. I hate this BS vernacular, annoying AG. Interesting. I Am Too Bear writes, Diana was the most popular and loyal PhD. I agree. Skunkhead writes, Queen opposed a Archie dig at Kig's home Ilswait. I don't know what you're trying to say. I'm sorry. A name writes, the mother queen was the queen's mother. Elizabeth is queen, not her mother. Yeah. So a name, thank you for correcting me. The grandmother scolded Prince Andrew because Prince Andrew appeared on a television show that she felt was inappropriate for the monarchy, and the grandmother had a fit with Prince Andrew over it. So I thought that was interesting. I kind of wonder how the grandmother would feel about what's happening now. Jackie Porter Wright, he took part in It's a Knockout, and the host of that was also prosecuted for child abuse. Thank you, Jackie Porter. Elizabeth is the queen, not queen mother. If she steps down, then she will be the queen mother. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, so continuing on, I really appreciate all the chats. And this is the thing. Kate Middleton is apparently the one person who's going to save the monarchy and, be what the monarchy needs. So Kate Middleton is wanted by the Grenadier Guards to replace disgraced Prince Andrew as their colonel. The Grenadier Guards want Kate Middleton to replace Prince Andrew as their colonel, it has been reported. Senior officials have said they wanted the Duchess to take on the role after the Duke of York was axed from the position this month, which I think is really awesome, to be honest with you. And this is the thing about Kate Middleton. She is so, so beautiful. Like, wow. But those pictures for her 40th birthday, I didn't like them. I thought she looks a lot better in paparazzi shots. So I'm just looking at this photo now and I'm like, oh my God. But then when I look at her 40th birthday shots, I don't know. I feel like they're not as nice. Let me just look at. This was recently just came out. Yeah, I just didn't really, I think she looks better in paparazzi shots, to be honest. But anyway, so I think that's really awesome. I think Kate Middleton should be actually, I'm a fan of Kate Middleton. Kate would be the first appointed female colonel in the regime's 366-year history if she were to take on the role. Wow, first female colonel. And she would replace disgraced Prince Andrew, who was stripped of his military patronages over allegations, something he has strongly denied. So yeah, I think that's awesome. I don't know what you guys think. So just switching it up. Queen's poignant return to Philip's cottage sanctuary at Sandringham. So the monarch plans to privately remember both her husband and her father by making an emotional pilgrimage to the Duke's woodland bolt hole for the first time since his death. So this is happening today. So long after most families have taken their decorations down, the Christmas tree lights still twinkle at Sandringham. Inside the house, great fir trees are covered with traditional baubles of glittering red and gold. In the dining room stands a rare modernizing touch, a gloriously unstuffy artificial silver tree with strands of tinsel hanging down. Thanks to the Queen's stipulations, the decorations are kept up until February 6th. Some will say it's bad luck, and the Queen has certainly had more than her fair share of that. Yet those closest to the monarch know the decorations are a quiet tribute to her beloved father, whose early death on February 6, 1952, catapulted her to the throne at the age of 25. So that is so adorable. They are a poignant reminder of the Queen's sense of duty in carrying on his work. So this is what she's doing. She's doing a pilgrimage today to Sandringham. And that's just very sweet. That's just what she's up to. So I don't know. God save the Queen. I feel really bad for Prince Andrew. I mean, the Queen and Prince Andrew basically destroying it. Her last few days. But it's not over yet. And this is also something a little bit interesting about the Queen as well. She's known for her corgis, but she recently adopted a Cocker Spaniel. This is her with her Cocker Spaniel. That's her new dog. So it says, the Queen is well known for her love of corgis, but she is now the proud owner of a prize-winning Cocker Spaniel. So I don't know. This is kind of cute stuff. It's not all bad. And just a little fun fact here. Ghislaine Maxwell is learning Russian in prison to maintain her sanity. So I'm going to be reading your chats. How long have I been blogging for? Thank you guys for standing by me for an hour and a half. I've been doing this for an hour and a half. That is crazy, crazy town. I'm going to drink some tea. Honestly, I haven't really had some water since I started this. And I feel like my mind is starting to get very like hurt right now. Okay, so I'm going to be reading your chats now. Ghost of Christmas. Honestly, if you look at it too, if there was going to be a lawsuit, the queen had kicked out her son. Otherwise, the crown and everything that they own would also be liable. Exactly. So Ghost of Christmas, you raise a really good point. And honestly, that's what I was trying to say earlier, but you said it a lot better than I did. I kind of speculated that, and you are too, they actually stripped Prince Andrew of all his titles so that the crown wouldn't be liable because Prince Andrew will be representing himself as a private citizen as opposed to on behalf of the crown in court. So that's a very good, interesting point. Queen Nessie writes, William's children will become king before Andrew. William's children will become king before Andrew. Yeah, Queen Nessie, thank you. Which I kind of found interesting that he's still in line for the throne. He's ninth in line for the throne. I think he shouldn't be in line for the throne at all. Lorraine Normanton writes, if you want all the dirt on Savile with the royal family, watch the podcast or old programs, Shan Ashwood. Okay, I will. Yeah, because Lorraine, I gotta be 100% gangster. I didn't really hear about Savile until I started doing this case. And I saw how people would see that this is, very consistent with the royal family's behavior. And what I found really strange about the Savile case is I did a lot of digging, but the point is I had to dig for it to find that information. It was so hard to find. Like, what were the actual allegations? So I thought it was kind of like a weird cover up. Thank you for that. Paula Newton writes, we all are people with titles. Thank God we don't have kings and queens, just layers who happen to be lawyers. Oh, liars who happen to be lawyers. Thank you, Paula. Leah writes, seriously, I need answers about the Queen and Philip killing and eating kids from Canada. So I kind of started some rumors here, and I think that was my fault. I came up with rumors that the Queen actually was eating Native American children at residential schools. I think that kind of was spiraled in the chat, but my original story was Queen Elizabeth visited Canada and visited the residential schools with the Native American children who were basically undergoing genocide because the residential schools in Canada were a way for Canada, the settlers, to strip Native American children of their culture, and that we call them residential schools here. And the Queen visited one and made the kids bow down to her and kiss her boots. That was the rumor. And then it spiraled into she ate them. So, okay. Someone's going to record that and put that on online, and I'm going to get like sued. Okay. Rich Cope writes, what about the naked guy that was climbing out of the window at Buckingham Palace? He must have escaped. LOL, Rich Cope. So I played it on my channel, the naked guy coming out of the Buckingham Palace, but then it was actually debunked. It was totally staged. I hate to break it to you, but here, let me just pull that up, because I was like, there was a naked guy outside of the Buckingham Palace. Naked guy, Buckingham Palace. He was climbing out, and it looked like he was like caught in an affair. Yeah. So number one, video of naked man escaping Buckingham Palace, a hoax. I don't know if we're talking about the same video, but this video is now private because I think they were called out on it. But this is from 2015, and it's always being brought up in my chat. So this is the one everybody's talking about, the naked guy coming out of Buckingham Palace. I think it was done with green screen. So someone filmed it and then they put a green screen over it, but it's absolutely hilarious because like everybody believed it. I know I did. When I first saw this video, I was like, what? That's crazy. So I'm going to be continuing reading your chats. Okay, Meghan Markle was. Okay, so someone wrote, please stop saying it is a rumor, gilded phoenix. So the reason why I say it's a rumor is because I don't want to get sued. That's literally the reason why I say this is a rumor. Okay, so Philip and Queen stole children. It was documented. Guided Phoenix writes, okay, that's a rumor. I don't want to get sued. Michelle writes, love your work, Joseph and Gabby from South Africa. Thank you. Christine Crockford writes, there are speculations between Jimmy Savile and an ex-UK Prime Minister, Ted Heath. And that reminds me of Lord Middleton. Lord Middleton. Totally spelling that wrong. Totally pronouncing it wrong too. Lord Mandelson. That's it. So grinning Labor ex-cabinet minister Lord Mandelson helping billionaire convicted criminal Jeffrey Epstein blow out birthday cake candles at Paris party a year after financier was charged with offenses. So this guy is apparently a part of the UK government, similar to what you're saying about Savile. And he's seen hanging out with a guy after he served time in jail for these offenses, which is a really huge red flag. And this guy is Labor cabinet minister, Peter Mandelson. So that is crazy. This goes far, far beyond. And here's Prince Andrew and Lord Mandelson also previously worked together when the Duke was a special representative for trade and investment. So these guys are dirty. Like crazy. Thank you for that comment. So I downloaded this video and let me just read some of your chats because I'm actually really enjoying reading your chats. Janice King writes, Hewitt has now told the truth and said the affair started when William was only 9 months old. So who's Hewitt? Hewitt affair. So thank you guys for telling me all this stuff. Hewitt was a major source and has alleged that he had a 5-year affair with Diana, Princess of Wales, from 1986 to 1991. Diana confirmed the affair in her 1995 Panorama interview. Hewitt considered suicide after the affair ended. He was preparing for a trip to France and he wanted to shoot himself. Guys, like I just want to say I love reading the chats because you guys know so much more than I do. Thank you, Janice King, for that. And A48126, don't be jealous because the nearest thing to royalty for you are celebs. Yeah. In America, we have dynasties too. And it's our dynasty right now is Kim Kardashian. So maybe I am a bit jealous. Because I will say that I do like the royal family more than I like the Kardashians. I will go on record saying that. Pips252 writes, I think the stuffed animals are, by royal family, I mean, I like Prince William and Kate Middleton. And I do like, I'm one of those people that do actually like Meghan Markle. I know that's controversial. Okay, so Pips252, I think the stuffed animals are from each of the ladies he blank. I think they picked it out and it's placed in order of the acquaintance. Ooh, that is creepy. Pips252. So stuffed animals. Prince Andrew. So I know I had an image of where he liked to have them out. So right here. Apparently he had like 60 and he had a diagram to force the maid staff to put them in a certain way. So this is a depiction of how he wants his teddies arranged. We have teddy with necklace, had to be arranged near there. Hippo and middle of blanket. Black Panther. Gray hippo. 3 pillows. And I don't know why this stands out to me, but there's a pillow that says daddy on it. And that's a little weird to me. That's just a little strange. That's just a little weird. Ducks, Prince, and then Teddy holding heart. And then you want us 3 pillows. So my friend in the chat says each of these teddy bears represent a woman he has slept with. That's just crazy. This guy's a freak. This guy's a freak. By this guy, I mean Prince Andrew's a freak. Bree94 writes, please be respectful of Joseph. Thank you, Bree. I'm cool with people correcting me. It's all good. Everybody's being really nice to me. Thank you. Oro Restrepo writes, he's Charles' son, but gets treated like a stepchild. Nice. Nisi McG writes, BBC are planning a new documentary on Jimmy Savile. How sick. I agree. 1.2K in chat and only 518. Let's get the likes up and get the algorithm going. Yeah, that reminds me. Please like my video, because when I talk about Prince Andrew, my video gets way down in the algorithm, and because it is kind of controversial information given the content. So if you guys actually like my video, it helps boost my video up a lot. So thank you so much, Bree. Bree, you're awesome. I'm going to give you moderator. I'm going to give some more. I saw someone else say Nadia. Thank you, Nadia. Maxwell family associated with MTV. Heavens writes. Interesting. I never heard that one. Becky B writes, I would love to go in his room and mess up all his stuffed animals. LOL. Oro Restrepo writes, they're all freaks. Queen started all those stupid stories. That's hilarious. I'm actually going to play a video, and I'm going to be reading your chats at the same time.
I would like to think that lessons have been learned, because my goodness, some lessons did need learning.
I'm Scott Rouse. I'm a body language expert and analyst, and I train law enforcement and the military in interrogation and body language. Mark?
I'm Mark Bowden, expert in human behavior and body language, help people all over the world to stand out, win trust, gain credibility, including leaders of the G7. Chase.
Hey, I'm Chase Houston, 20 years in the U.S. military, wrote the #1 best-selling book on behavior profiling, influence, and persuasion. Greg?
Greg Hartley. I'm a former Army interrogator, interrogation instructor, resistance interrogation instructor, and I've written 10 books on body language and behavior. These muscles in the middle gathering and request for approval, holding his brow up as he tells a story. And Chase, you're right. He's pulling. He's trying to get that fishing thing going. He's fishing for approval. He makes way too much eye contact. And the reason the taffy pulling thing happens is because you keep your eyes connected and turn your head. It's an odd kind of a request for approval. But yeah, his message certainly didn't age well. And this will be an interesting one. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so hang on, submissive. I mean, I went on the internet and I saw that it says, if people are getting good eye contact, that means they're pretty positive.
I'm Scott Rouse. I'm a body language expert and analyst, and I train law enforcement in the military in interrogation and body language. Mark?
I'm Mark Bowden, expert in human behavior and body language, help people all over the world to stand out, win trust, gain credibility, including leaders of the G7. Chase.
Hey, I'm Chase Houston, 20 years in the U.S. military, wrote the #1 best-selling book on behavior profiling, influence, and persuasion. Greg?
Greg Hartley. I'm a former Army interrogator, interrogation instructor, resistance interrogation instructor, and I've written 10 books on body language and behavior.
Today we're going to talk about Prince Andrew. He's in the news again because of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, but mostly because of his relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell, or Galen, however you say her name. Greg, tell us about the videos we're going to see.
Yeah, these videos are with Emily Maitlis back in 2019, and this is where he denies a lot of the things that he's now in trouble for, and that has caused him to have all of his titles taken from him. The 3 things we're going to look at is he says that Epstein was not his friend, which is part of his defense. The second was, I do not sweat. And the third one was, I was in working and could not have been at Tramp's nightclub.
He was your guest as well. In 2000, Epstein was a guest at Windsor Castle and at Sandringham. He was brought right into the heart of the royal family at your invitation.
But certainly at my invitation, not at the royal family's invitation. But remember that it was his girlfriend that was the key element in this. He was the, as it were, plus one to some extent in that.
Chase, what do you got?
This video is a classic example of selling instead of telling, and his behavior starts right away with the submissive interjection, trying to get his point across in a submissive way, which this submissive behavior is very outside of his normal baseline. And when he says key element, this is indicative of the phrases somebody writes down or is briefed before a trial or deposition. And you see even more selling when he takes this confused look to share his uncertainty about the definition of a plus one, just so he can kind of get some agreement from the other person. And this is backed up with this classic upward tone. And he even does a little of what Greg calls taffy pulling, where he's kind of pulling her along to get some agreement there. And as a quick side note, if anybody's ever hung out with Epstein and then goes on TV and they don't talk about how repulsive that behavior is or how disgusted they are by it, that should be a gigantic red flag all on its own. And that should tell you almost all you need to know. That's all I got. Greg?
Yeah, let's start with how poorly his message has aged. In the beginning, this message was about, I'm not Epstein's friend, I'm Galen's friend. Well, she's in prison now, so that didn't age well. And if he thought that was a great defense, he's in trouble for that. He alternates between confusion, that's these muscles in the middle gathering, and request for approval, holding his brow up as he tells a story. And Chase, you're right, he's pulling. He's trying to get that fishing thing going. He's fishing for approval. He makes way too much eye contact. And the reason the taffy pulling thing happens is because you keep your eyes connected and turn your head. It's an odd kind of a request for approval. But yeah, his message certainly didn't age well, and this will be an interesting one. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so hang on, submissive. I mean, I went on the internet and I saw that it says, you know, if people are getting good eye contact, that means they're pretty positive, they're pretty confident. Well, that's true until it absolutely isn't. And in this case, it absolutely isn't. Chase is absolutely right there, of course. Because if you look at his baseline, what he tends to do in interviews where he's not on the hot plate and he's really able to play that status that he has at this point, which is Vice Admiral, pretty high up in the Royal Navy there, and he's a royal at the same time, is he won't give any eye contact at all while he's listening to other people's questions. He won't give any eye contact at all while he's giving an answer. He'll just flash his eyes now and again to really put an emphasis on specific parts of his answer. Here, he locks a lot of eye contact. Just as Chase says, he takes up space with that but. He's literally fighting for his territory right now. And that's displayed in the way he takes up space with his words and with his eye contact there. He is on the hot plate here, and this is very out of character for him. Scott, what have you got on this one?
I agree with you, Mark, wholeheartedly, because what he's doing there at the top is he's using not only the trying to speak to as a regulator, he's using the but he's also he's also got that look of concern on his face. So in a way, he's using his expression and his words as a regulator. Regulators are the things you use to speed up or slow down a conversation or stop them. And those are usually done with your hands and sometimes with your head. But in this case, it's mostly facial expressions and what he's saying at that time. And while he's doing this, his head goes down and starts guarding his neck because he feels, I think, he's under the impression there's going to be some stress here because he's not being honest about this, as we know. And he keeps throwing it. He throws the thing over to, like Greg was saying, over to his girlfriend, Ghislaine, and says he was just a plus one with her. So it's like, and he separates himself from the royal family when he does the illustrator coming in like this, and then he says the royal family makes them bigger and away from him. So he knows he's got to separate himself from them because there's trouble there.
He was your guest as well. In 2000, Epstein was a guest at Windsor Castle and at Sandringham. He was brought right into the heart of the royal family at your invitation.
But certainly at my invitation, not at the royal family's invitation. But remember that it was his girlfriend that was the key element in this. he was the, as it were, plus one to some extent.
All right. You good?
Yeah.
Do you remember her?
No. I have no recollection of ever meeting her. I'm almost, in fact, I'm convinced that I was never in tramps with her. There are a number of things that are wrong with that story. One of which is that I don't know where the bar is in tramps. I don't drink. I don't think I've ever bought a drink in tramps whenever I was there.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, you can't miss this one. The blink rate increase, and then he progressively gets more amused with his answer. He's got an answer for this one. And he's got that request for approval, that brow up. I am convinced. Yeah, okay, well, he's navigating. He stutters through the beginning of this thing. I was never in tramp. I don't know where the bar is. I don't think I ever bought a drink when I was at the bar, in effect, is what he's saying. He has emotional eye accessing down to his right when he does break eye contact at one point. And then when he's saying, I don't know where the bar is, look at his forehead. And if you have children, see the kid who spilled the chocolate milk telling you, no, it wasn't me. That is exactly the look right here. Chase, you've got a great chocolate milk story. And this one would be your kid trying to tell you that didn't happen. But you can't miss that, all that self-amusement, but the chin down to protect the throat forces that dewlap of his out. And it's just so noticeable in him, it's hard to pass up. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, let me just touch base on that chin thing. We put our chin down to protect ourselves and when we're in fear. And keep in mind, this protected our ancestors. So anything that really protected our ancestors gets passed down and coded into our DNA. So that's why we have facial expressions and body language that all kind of matches up unconsciously. So we're seeing this unconscious response to fear here. And this upward tone, which I think he's just kind of transferring or selling his uncertainty to the other person. But the biggest thing in this clip is his blink rate. And blink rate refers to how often we're blinking. So we can go from like really slow or not very often to very often quickly. And that's an indicator of stress with a high blink rate. And low blink rate is relaxation or focus. The average in conversation is about 15. And if somebody's really stressed out, their blink rate can be around the 50s. And in this particular video, his blink rate is around 91, which is indicative of extreme stress and extreme mental processing, which is going on. And Greg, I think that is also hilarious. I don't drink. I don't think I bought a drink when I was at the bar. I don't know where it is. I think that's great. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so this gaping mouth that we see at the start, a bit like a fish. Now, it could be a number of things. Is it, he is definitely under stress. I agree. You see it in the blink rate for sure. And so it could be him gaping to take in oxygen. It could be him doing his kind of but silently, or preparing his answer. I'm not quite sure which one it is. Either way, it's not good. Either way, it's not a good indicator, whatever it is. But I do want to bring out this upward inflection that he's got here. Just as Chase says there are some universals, some unequivocal universals in body language. That chin coming in, we all have delicate areas here. All of us human beings on the planet are going to gravitate towards that under stress. Tonality can change culture to culture, person to person. And so if we think about his cultural tonality, being from the Royal Navy, being somebody who is royal themselves, he's going to have a lot of command downward intonation when he's very, very certain of things. And we do see that in his baseline for sure. So why here are we getting so much upward intonation, as Chase pointed to there? Her story, where the bar is in tramps. I don't drink, ever bought a drink, whenever I was there. All of those elements that he should be certain of, he's giving upward intonation, which means he's asking for approval or is uncertain himself, looking for buy-in. Again, it could be any one of those or all of those, whatever it is. It's not good and it's way out of his baseline. So I don't like the look of it. Scott, what do you got on this one?
This is the reason I hate going last, because everything gets covered. So I'll go back to the beginning of it and do something, just do about how he was talking about things. So the answer to this is no. I never met her. Not no, and then what are called qualifiers, where you add things to make your story more believable because you don't believe it yourself because you know it's not true. Now, the great thing about this interviewer, when he gives an answer, she just waits. She just sits there and keeps looking at it, and then he starts adding things and making him uncomfortable. So he starts adding these qualifiers that really don't mean anything, and he's just digging his hole deeper and deeper and deeper and making it harder to get out. When he says, I've never bought I don't know where the bar is and I've never bought a drink. Mark and I, we've all talked about this. Mark's been there. It's not too hard to see the bar when you go in that place. Number one. No, that's number two. And then number one, if you've been to this place a lot and you never bought anybody a drink, whether it's a girl or one of your buddies or all your buddies, you're a cheapola. This is a prince. He's got all the money in the whole wide world. He's not bought one drink at this place. Give me a break. I'm not buying that. And yeah, Chase is blink right. I actually got in there and in an 8-second period there toward the top, it's 17 times in 8 seconds. And I had so many, it was so fast. I had to slow it down and do it frame by frame to catch them all. And it was, and in that one section, that's 127.5, blinks per minute. And I just added that because you always add how much it is per minute. But in that small little section, that's a whole lot. That's all. That's you're just going tick, 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 and his were fluttering. And that's a form of eye blocking as well. And we look away or we'll block our eyes when for example, you'll see that when people are hearing a joke at work and they're not comfortable with it. And there are people around that will be embarrassed by the joke. You'll see a lot of times cover their eyes, or people will close their eyes. And in this case, we're seeing him do that with this fluttering. I think at the same time, that's a combination of eye blocking and his brain trying to come up with an answer and to make his qualifiers even more shiny as it goes along.
Do you remember her?
No. I have no recollection of ever meeting her. I'm convinced that I was never in tramps with her. There are a number of things that are wrong with that story. One of which is that I don't know where the bar is in tramps. I don't drink. I don't think I've ever bought a drink in tramps whenever I was there.
All right, we good?
Yeah.
Let's move.
She was very specific about that night. She described dancing with you and you profusely sweating, and that she went on to have possibly.
There's a slight problem with the sweating because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time, and that was yes, I didn't sweat at the time because I had suffered what I would describe as an overdose of adrenaline in the Falklands War when I was shot at. And I simply, it was almost impossible for me to sweat. And it's only because I have done a number of things in the recent past that I'm starting to be able to do that again. So I'm afraid to say that there's a medical condition that says that I didn't do it, so therefore.
Wow.
You know what the funniest part is? Go out and look. I sent Scott this picture when we were doing this. There's a picture of him leaving a club sweating like a...
Oh, like a pig. Yeah, man.
Yeah, of course.
He's a full of... All right. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, this is one of my favorites so far. I don't sweat is his defense. Okay, well, that's easily provable. And then I think he, even in the middle of it, realizes that is easily provable. So he has to come up with some other reason why he would sweat now that he didn't then. So he goes about navigating and telling you, well, only after taking some action recently. And when he says that, he eye blocks. He eye blocks specifically at that time. In the beginning, he's uncomfortable, his chin's down. And that laugh is not a laugh of confidence. That's a laugh of, uh-oh. And then he thinks he comes up with an answer, swallows a couple of times. That's discomfort. And then he goes down this story about adrenaline. Too much adrenaline caused him to get to this point. Now, I'm going to tell you, I talk about SEER a lot. In my SEER days, we have pushed people to adrenal fatigue to the point that they ball up in the floor. I never saw anybody lose the ability to sweat as a result of that. Maybe I wasn't mean enough, don't know. But this is suspicious on the medical field side. Never mind, just you can tell that he's not telling the truth. All those clusters go together. You don't trust this. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, there's so much in this that I just want to concentrate on one thing that kind of means the most to me, and you can watch how it progresses. And that's when he's telling this story, how you're going to see his thumb creeping behind his index finger and then eventually get totally hidden in his hand there by the end of it. Now, just as Chase was talking about, there are universal areas on our body that are universally vulnerable. It doesn't matter who you are, where you were born, who you were born to, what society or group you're part of, your joints are vulnerable. And if you've still got thumbs, okay, these thumb joints are so important because without that thumb joint working, you can't do opposable thumb pinching and you can't do any kind of delicate work with your hands, which is why you have this big neocortex primarily, so you can do all of this stuff. So these joints get really protected under stress and pressure. You'll see people do that all the time, the thumb and the forefinger, keeping those covered up. He does this beautifully in that. And that alone, for me, because of the way it progresses, is a huge indicator that this story he is utterly unconfident around. Scott, what do you got on this one?
All right, I agree with you 100%. At the beginning, he uses his hand, again, as a regulator, then as a barrier, as he's trying to shut. She doesn't even get to finish the question. He tries to shut her down. And it takes him 14 seconds to get to the part where he has a condition where he can't sweat. But, And so my dad's a doctor. And I asked him, I said, hey, what disease is it? What has happened where you don't sweat? What are the situations where that comes up? And he said, heat stroke. Once you have heat stroke, you sweat out as much as you can sweat out, and you're not going to be able to sweat anymore. I said, what else is there? And he said, nothing I can think of. I said, what about you have a big adrenaline dump? What happens at that point? He said, no, that's not going to do it either. And he explained to me there are different parts of the brain that handle the sweating part of what happens with your body compared to the things what happens when you have an adrenaline dump. So there may be some kind of situation we're not aware of, maybe some, thyroid problem or something he's got. I don't know. I have no earthly idea. But I don't think that's true at that point. And in the beginning, everything is fairly big. He stops and he starts, and by the end of it, he's almost frozen. He's almost squatted down, frozen. Mark and I are into comedy. I collect old comedians' autographs. Mark collects memorabilia from comedians and funny people. And one of the things that we both noticed right off the bat was this looked like a Ricky Gervais bit from something he's doing when he's lying, either a live thing, one of his live shows, or when he's on one of his shows that he's done. It also looked like a couple of things on there from the Blackadder. You can see that as well on him. Maybe that's just a British thing. So why he looks like the Blackadder when he's lying. But that's one of those things that instantly stuck out that show that he looked like a little child lying to me at that point. All right. Chase, what do you got? Oh, Chase already went. No, you didn't.
No.
Okay.
No, didn't go.
Good.
So just quickly imagine that someone's reading a transcript to you and they're talking to another person. They say, you're at this party, you're sweating all over these people, you're drinking, there's an underage girl walking around in her underwear. And you say, or you hear the person say, no, there's a problem with that. And it's with the sweating. And nothing else is denied. Nothing else is denied. So there's no denial. It's redirection. It's a non-answer. It's not answering the question. He goes back to focusing on these minutia that are insignificant, as if the underage people are not an issue, but the sweating is somehow a crime that he needs to defend himself against. And then he borrows authority. He's borrowing authority from his military career, kind of redirecting the story. I was in the Falklands War. And this lack of sweat ability is called anhidrosis. It's usually, most of the time, it's medication reactions to, or some kind of genetic inheritance. And extremely rare cases, to my knowledge and in my education, this happens mostly in animals, that if they are attacked, the receptors are receiving too much of adrenaline or epinephrine, and they start to downregulate it, which is almost never the case from what I've researched. That's all I got.
She was very specific about that night. She described dancing with you and you profusely sweating, and that she went on to have bath, possibly.
There's a slight problem with the sweating because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time, and that was yes, I didn't sweat at the time because I had suffered what I would describe as an overdose of adrenaline in the Falklands War when I was shot at. And I simply, it was almost impossible for me to sweat. And it's only because I have done a number of things in the recent past that I'm starting to be able to do that again. So I'm afraid to say that there's a medical condition that says that I didn't do it, so therefore.
Oh no, I think Greg froze. He froze, check it out. Oh my Lord, are you frozen or not?
I'm suspicious.
No, he's frozen.
Oh yeah, he is frozen.
Should we wait on him? Oh, let's go around and come back to him. We'll just look at him. So it's his turn. All right, so let's throw it around the room and we'll all wrap it up. And we'll go with Mark, Chase, and Greg. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is that this is totally outside of his authority behavior baseline. So he's, as Greg might say, on the griddle here. This is a real worm on the griddle for him, though you might see still some levels of authority compared to how he'd normally be. Totally outside the baseline. That alone means something's going on here outside of the ordinary for him. Chase.
Yeah, this whole video is about a sales pitch, and it's not about facts. It's not about, there's no certainty and there's no denials here that are confident or firm denials. And anytime we're watching any video, one of the first things I look at is that person's level of control over themselves in that interview. That's the first thing I personally look for. How in control of themselves are they? And we see he is wildly out of control because he's wildly separated from his normal behavior. Greg?
Yeah, I think, Mark, he missed his chance to be credible by simply not saying that never happened. That's all he had to say and move on to the next topic, not try to over-explain. And you can see, even when we are using this interview as a baseline, the deviations we see from it. When it gets a hot topic, you can see the difference. You see that chin protection. That's pretty universal. We talk about very few things being universal, but then you see him using a little bit of chaff and redirect and lots of other ways to avoid answering the question. It surely looks like deception. Scott, what do you have?
Yeah, this is it's a great example of a bad attempt at lying because he goes through every cue you can just about nail in deception. We're seeing him here. And in our regular video, and the one that this is like 2 hours long, we have a version of this. Go watch that. You'll see everything in it. But in this, we're just hitting some hot spots. But it's a great example of someone who's being deceptive, and we know he's being deceptive at this point. And I think it's just a great example all around for that. All right. I think this was a good one, fellas, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Bill.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for the super chats from, let me just make sure I got your names, Maria D, Janice King, Paula Newton. I really, really appreciate that. It really helps my channel out. And as you all know, the mods in the chat room are saying, hey, please make sure you like my video, because that also really helps out my channel as well, because as you know, YouTube likes to bury these kind of videos about Prince Andrew partying with Thai girls on a boat. So if you can give my channel a thumbs up, it really helps out too. Thank you so much. And let me just read some of your chats. Did Andrew do that with permission from his lawyer, or is he just arrogant to listen? Mima Dragon writes. So I believe Prince Andrew thought he did a really good job on that interview. I'm not too sure if he had any sort of counsel to do that interview, but either way, he was just so arrogant that he thought he did an amazing job with that interview. But it was really infamous, and it actually caused him to step down from his royal duties. Thank you, Debbie Lee. Mary Green, thank you for totally sticking it out with me for now 2 hours. It's been good. Okay, so Apollonia Tides writes, this is payback because he didn't want to settle down with the escort Virginia. She knows Snarkle, who had relations with Andy, and Dropkick Hazard pretty much. Knows this is no nasty rumor. I didn't understand anything you just said. Cool, but you're from Australia with the kangaroo. Hi. So yeah, the thing about Virginia Giuffre in her lawsuit, her several lawsuits, she actually went to Prince Andrew to ask him to provide medical records to show that he can't sweat because that is his alibi. His other alibi is that he was at Pizza Express in Woking, but no one can corroborate that despite having so much security surrounded by him at all times. And as we just saw with that body analysis video, the guy is being deceptive and he's also lying a lot. So Rose Davis writes, Andrew's public relations secretary went on to work for Alec Baldwin. That's funny. All right, guys. So hi, Marion. I really want to say thank you to everybody for hanging out with me for 2 hours now, but my dog is trying to run away. I think she's getting cold. So we're going to make dinner and, please make sure you subscribe, ring the bells so you never miss a live because I love hanging out with you guys. Do not forget to press like. I left my email. I'm going to be leaving my email in the description, but it's jldmorris@gmail.com. So if you guys have any sort of tips you want to send me, you can send me them there because I love reading your comments right here and I love reading them down below. So I always follow up on stuff. So thank you so much, guys. I love you guys all for hanging out with me for 2 hours. Please make sure you subscribe, press like and ring the bell. And thank you to all my mods and all the super chatters for keeping me afloat and doing a really good job. I love you guys all. Thank you so much.